My name is Mwenya Chimba, and I'm Head of Training and Survivor Engagement for Welsh Women's Aid. How I came to be here, I think I joined the women's sector in Wales in 2008. I had done a lot of academic work around women and how they're represented, and wanted to get a real feel of how that takes place in real practice. Apart from, of course, being a woman myself and fighting the small, as they say, they're the small politics. You do all that in your entire life as a woman, the small P's. But then trying to look at the big P's and how do you support women, empower women as they experience different forms of violence against women. I'm starting to work at BAWSO. It's an organization that provides services for Black and ethnic minority women largely, and worked there for a very long time. And whilst working at BAWSO, got actively involved in the change, pushing for change, advocating, doing a lot of policy work. And I think when I think back on all these years, I think the things that stand out for me, chairing the Violence Against Women Action Group, when the legislative process of the Violence Against Women Domestic Abuse and Sexual Violence Wales bill was going through the process. Being a chair, I think the bill, now the Act of 2015, is in place, and we have seen how that is influencing change. Certain things are changing because you have to start with, of course, somewhere, and we started with legislation, and that was quite groundbreaking, and in a way made me feel, we were, although having been a Welsh woman then for more than 15 years living in Wales, it did make you feel we are making steps. They've made a lot of steps, but we are making steps now that all this pushing, all this advocacy work that has been done, that they were getting into some kind of fruition, some kind of recognition. As you know, the movement and the sector started from women wanting to help other women. That's what it was about, really. Of course, so in trying to professionalize that, recognizing that we still don't want to get away from what the ethos are. And I think that's the biggest challenge we face at the moment. We're not at that point yet. So Welsh Women's Aid, I think, is an organization that has been very dynamic, very progressive. To be part of that, an organization that was very progressive and pushing that women's agenda. And I think firstly was trying to avoid being boxed, because I'm a journalist, I'm a feminist, I'm a Black Welsh woman. Sometimes if you work for a very specialist organization, like a BME specialist organization, you get boxed into that as a BME specialist, and your skills, which are non-BME, can be applied across the board, seem to just remain or recognized in that realm. So I thought I had the skills and the experience after all these years working in the academia, not just back home, but even in the UK, having been a research associate, having been lecturer at University of Chester, I thought I had the skills that I could bring to the fore, that I could utilize and work with such a dynamic and very progressive organization such as Welsh Women's Aid. I was saying, they're very progressive. As an African feminist, I could relate to such an organization and wanted to be part of such an organization and look forward to being part of shaping the movement as we go forward. Because I know even now, when you talk about feminism, there was a backlash. Then we sort of seemed to have gotten over it. But now when you talk about feminism, and it's like it's still a bad word. It's getting back to that place where it's not that acceptable, because it seems as if it is not inclusive. It's about empowering people. And if the power dynamics were balanced, then naturally we wouldn't be pushing for feminist principles. We wouldn't be talking about some of these things because they would be obvious, isn't it? So I think the fight is still on. When you look at the movement and all, we have achieved quite a lot in Wales, but there's still a lot more to do. There's still, I think, all these, I talked, for instance, about violence against women and girls and how somehow there's that perception that then the big question is, what about the men? Where people fail to recognize that even as you talk about violence against women and girls, men are at the center of it. It does not mean that men should not be given, or should not have access to services that they require. It's not about that. It's a lot more, and I think there's still a lot of work to be done. If all was okay, we wouldn't be having to do this. But society we live in is not like that.